welcome to my virtual Renaissance fair. Thank you so much for being here.
So lovely to be a part of your virtual. I'm so happy.
I wish we could be toasting in person, but
I know.
I'm so glad that we have our drinks tonight, or in the morning for you, but
I know, don't tell everyone. I know, I was just saying to Kate, everyone, that I popped the bottle before 11 a.m. Please do not tell anybody that I just said that. But it's okay. I didn't have a first sip till after 11 a.m.
Yes, and this is an event, and it's also perfect time for brunch. It happens, it's absolutely normal to do that. So a lot of people who are watching this know you from your very popular website on the tudortrail.com, which has been going for over a decade. Is that right?
It has 11 years. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a long time.
It's like, what? Yeah, it flies by though. And of course, your really popular podcast, Talking Tudors, which is so much fun to listen to. I enjoy it very much. And most recently, you've launched a sort of social media group called the Women's History Circle. So a lot of people are starting to know you through that, but it's also just such a wonderful way to get people together. And I've really enjoyed watching that grow.
Yeah, thank you. It's still in its infancy, but it's becoming a really lovely community.
Yeah, and you've also written a lot of wonderful books, and I have a few of them.
Oh yay, show and tell. I love it.
The show and tells, and then our other coloring book together. But I don't know how many people, I guess we've never really talked about it, how many people know how we met, or actually rather how you found me online. You found me on the internet.
I did find you on the internet. Would you like me to tell that story?
Do you remember? Yeah.
Yes, I do. I had started on the Tudor Trail, as you mentioned, in 2009. So I started as a place to kind of record Tudor places because I was completely and utterly obsessed with that. And that's sort of my thing. I love telling the story of the Tudors through the incredible buildings that remain and the ones that are lost. So that's what the website was about to begin with. And I had just sort of done my own, well, I won't even call it design. I don't even know what I had on there. And I was really desperate to find somebody, a very clever somebody that could, make it pretty, make it nice, do the nice background, etc. But I also really desperately wanted to find someone that loved the Tudors as well. So I thought, oh, well, this is a bit tricky. That's basically what I was Googling, a graphic designer or a web designer that also loved the Tudors. And I actually couldn't believe it when I came across, I think it was not the site you have now, but a previous website, and that you'd worked on some Tudor books and done I don't know what the technical word is, but the kind of interior.
Yes, the typography. Yeah, that's right. Yes. Yeah, and I had written, you found me on my blog called The Lettered Set, which I don't have anymore. It was a cute crafting blog. But I was writing, I think I wrote an entry about this sort of book design trend of the time, which I do still see sometimes, of books of a certain historical fiction time period where if it's taking place before the 17th century and it's about a woman, it was usually a woman in a beautiful gown, but part of her head was cropped off the top. So they were calling that the Anne Boleyn style. And I feel like, as you searched Google, the algorithm was like, here you go.
Yeah.
Tudors.
It brought us together.
Actually, I went through my paintings. This is your background to your website. This is the original. This is it.
Wow.
I saved it.
I believe it. I love it. And so, I haven't even mentioned to you how many times I've had people email me and say, where's that from? I absolutely love it. And of course, the inspiration was Anne Boleyn's Book of Hours.
Yes.
But yeah, I've had a lot of people compliment me. And you can tell that after 11 years, I haven't asked you to change it.
It works. I still remember getting that email. And I was telling my husband, I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. This woman has emailed me all the way from Australia, wants me to work on an illustration based on Anne Boleyn's Book of Hours. This is it. This is it for me. So thank you.
It was great.
It was. And then it wasn't until 2018 that we finally met in person on one of the most amazing trips I've ever taken. I'd never been to York, England before, and to be there with you and without kids and just gallivanting around the city was truly amazing. But I thought it was really funny too. You told me, I think it was your husband said, so you're going to England with this woman who you met online. You've never met in person. Are you sure about this? But it worked out.
And that's the second time I've done that. He said that to me when I went over to stay in
Oh,
Sarah
that's
Morris's
right.
house.
That's right.
He's like, darling, you've never met this lovely British woman. And I was like, she's cool. I'm fine. We've got the vibe going over email. It had been years that we'd been talking. I kind of knew she wasn't an axe murderer. So and we just absolutely hit it off. The same as you and I. It was the same sort of situation. And that was a fantastic trip.
It really was.
Beautiful York.
Oh, I can't wait to go back one day. I love that place. And that was right around the time that we were getting ready to publish our second coloring book, which I have here, which is Tudor Queens and Consorts. And, I was looking at these books and I was thinking, I don't know that we've ever talked about what maybe your favorite drawing was from these, or even just a page or a topic. I mean, you worked on all of the content, so you knew what was going into them. Obviously, you chose these for a reason. But do you have a particular page that you like the best, or
that's tricky, Kate? That's
like a lot
favorite child type thing. I think from our Queens and Consorts book, I'm going to have to say the Portrait of Anne Boleyn. I just love it, and as you know, I'm very drawn to her story. So I think it's got to be that one for me. Yes. But then obviously in our first book, we sort of had a wider range of inspirational topics and things. I think it's the Tudor lady that's dancing at Hever. Do you remember that one?
Yes, that was the nice one. Yeah,
again, I love Hever. So
and that
there's something quite magical about that illustration.
Yes, and I actually remember basing the building on one of your photographs. And so maybe that's why you feel connected to it. I remember drawing that page and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was really lovely. So, but I actually love all the illustrations. And if you haven't had a look, to your wonderful viewers, haven't had a little chance to flick through the book, it is beautiful. Kate's done an incredible job with the illustration. So I think for any Tudor history lover, it's a lovely gift, and Christmas is just around the corner.
It really is. And you can buy it on coloringtudorhistory.com or my Etsy page or on Amazon US. But it wouldn't have happened without all of your research. I mean, that's just, it all comes together. And I love how the second book is chronological and you just really dive into the Tudor Queens and Consorts. Okay, so I have some questions for you. Ooh. And I thought
I'm normally the one asking.
I know. I was like, well, we need to turn the tables here. So, what is your favorite scene or place that you would love to see in person but doesn't exist anymore? And now I know you, and you've talked about how you can feel a place and an atmosphere just from a field. So I'm sure you have a handful of these places.
Yes, and I recognize trees from long ago. And if you've listened to the episode that I recorded with Sarah Morris for my Talking
That's the one I'm thinking of.
First,
that was so fun.
Yeah. There was a lot of giggling about trees and things and silly things that we said while we were, in the footsteps of the Tudors. Yes. All right, a place. Kate, this is really difficult.
I'm sorry.
There's quite a lot that I love and that I would love to see. But I think I had a little peek at the questions prior, and I think that I have settled on Whitehall Palace. Yes. Now, let me explain a little bit for your viewers. So Whitehall Palace originally was called York Place, and it belonged to Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, which I'm sure lots of you have heard of. Unfortunately, Wolsey fell from favour towards the end, in the end of the 1520s. Right. And in 1529, very conveniently for Henry VIII, he was required to hand over all his property. That actually occurred, I think, let me just have a little, 22nd of October, 1529, he surrendered all his property to the king. Now, Wolsey was incredibly wealthy. So Henry, this added to Henry's property portfolio like crazy. But anyway, 2 days after that, Anne Boleyn, which was pretty much constantly by the king's side at this point, her mother, Elizabeth Boleyn, and Sir Henry Norris, the groom of the stool, jumped into a barge at Greenwich Palace and went to inspect York Place to see,
Wow, I can just imagine them hopping in, taking a ride.
And the king was absolutely delighted. He couldn't believe what he had just scored, basically. So why this palace is special to me is because from then on, Henry and Anne worked together on this huge design project. So they basically redesigned the whole palace complex. It would become one of the largest palaces in Europe. And it was basically the base of the royal family for 150 years or something.
Yeah.
And it was a palace that Anne herself had designed. She didn't get to see the end product, obviously, but she and Henry over that Christmas sat down. There are records of them receiving rolls of paper. They are drawing, they are designing. And what they came up with was an incredible complex. And let me just tell you, Kate, how huge this thing was. You've been to Hampton Court, right?
Yes.
All right. So I think from memory, the footprint of Hampton Court is about 6 acres, I think, from memory.
Mm-hmm.
Whitehall was something like 26 acres. So did I just... And it was actually, it was so big that a road ran through it. There was actually a public road that ran through it. And it had, you know, everything that you would expect, a huge entertainment complex. You could do bowling, tennis, jousting, whatever you can think of was there. It had incredible gardens, formal gardens, privy gardens. It had orchards, you know, extensive orchards. It backed onto St. James's Park. So very conveniently, it was an incredible hunting park. You know, the suites of rooms were just incredible. This was the, you know, an incredible palace, and it was designed very much so with Anne's help and her influence.
Wow.
And I just want to say before I forget that obviously Anne grew up in some of the most sophisticated courts of Europe. So she already had this love of architecture and building. Whereas I recently watched a video with Simon Thurley talking about the Berlin properties. And he makes it very, very clear, and I really want to emphasize this, that until Henry had Anne by his side, he had not embarked on any ambitious building projects.
Wow.
It was Anne's influence that actually made him go, okay, you know, I can do this. And then by the end of his reign, of course, pending which properties you count, he had between 50 and 70 houses by the time that he died.
Wow.
So, and Whitehall Palace is special for a couple of other reasons. It's where Anne made her first, and this is Anne Boleyn I'm talking, made her first public appearance.
Okay.
At the Masque.
Oh.
The Chateau, you've probably heard of it.
Yes, that's right.
You've probably seen it on the Tudors too.
But I'm thinking of that. Yes, I actually, I'm excited because at my fair, I'm going to reveal a picture I painted based on that. But it's based on the Tudor show version. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good because Anne actually played like so prophetically. She played the part of Perseverance, which I just think is, oh my God, crazy. So just a very, very quick summary. There were certain virtues and they were being held captive by some very disagreeable people that had really nasty names. I can't remember right now. And then, of course, there were 8 men that came to save the day and the king was among them. And there were Mary Boleyn, Anne's sister, was also there, and she played the part of kindness, which I think, again, very prophetic.
Yeah.
And there was Henry's sister, Mary, and some other women. So that was the first recorded appearance of Anne, happened at what was then York Place, the Cardinal's Place. And it's also where Anne and Henry's secret wedding took place.
Gosh.
On the 25th of January, in one of the upper chambers of the Holbein Gate. They had a secret marriage.
Which is also my birthday. The 25th of January is also my birthday. So I think I'm going to have to celebrate extra special.
Exactly. So, that's why I absolutely love White.
Yeah, how could you not pick that? That all of those, that's wonderful. Yes, absolutely.
Unfortunately, nothing survives, Kate, which is the sad. Well, I think there are little bits underground, but nothing substantial, which is a real pity.
Yeah, and they don't really have, unless there's funding, it's not like people can just look into those underground bits all the time.
I don't think so. I don't think they're open to the public. You can, of course, walk around the general area because it's so huge. But you need a very good imagination and, maybe out in the footsteps of Anne Boleyn guidebook to help you,
I think
work out where you are, what street to stand on and all those sorts of things.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for that. That was helpful for me too. I need to get there. I need to get there and feel that atmosphere. That actually is a good segue into my question about what might your favorite fictional adaptation be of the Tudor world. Now, mine is probably the Tudors, but that's how I got into it.
Yeah.
But it's because I love Natalie Dormer, but I also love others. But I want to hear what you have to say first.
Well, I love that too. I do love the Tudors. I'm not one of these people that, thinks, because it was
I used to be
inaccurate, the Mary and Margaret, 2 sisters, Melody, one sister. That drove me a little bit crazy. But I don't care. It was fun. And
Yeah.
people, like you've said, have come to find this period of history and love it because of the show. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But that's not my
Okay.
favorite. I'm going to pick one that's called, and I wonder how many people have watched it. It's called The Virgin Queen. And it was I think a 4-part BBC
I'm
miniseries
writing
from
this down.
about, yeah, write it down, 2005. And Elizabeth is played by Anne Marie Duff. And
Oh,
get this, Kate, you're going to love this. Robert Dudley is played by Tom Hardy.
what?
Yes.
I don't know
Yes.
about this.
I don't know how you don't know about this because honestly, I have watched and rewatched this more times than I care to share.
I'm so excited. I had no idea.
He does a brilliant job. Tom Hardy isn't a
Yeah.
brilliant actor, but I mean, he's such a good Dudley that you can just get a sense of how puffed up he was. And so please, and the other great thing, the costumes are fantastic.
Mhm.
It's again not completely accurate, but it's not too bad. It doesn't have too many outrageous kind of changes.
Yeah.
The music is by a group. The music is incredible, and I listen to the soundtrack all the time, by a group called Medieval Babes. Have you heard of them?
I have their album. I think I might have heard of it from you though. Somehow I have one of their albums. Yeah.
Yes, they have a beautiful Christmas album, everyone. So go and download that. But the soundtrack to The Virgin Queen is so good. It's so atmospheric. You'll just want to keep playing and playing and playing and playing. So that's got to be my favorite at the moment.
Wow.
I do love Anne of a Thousand Days. I have to just.
I was going to guess you were going to say that, but that's. I'm so glad to know of a new one. I didn't know that.
Love that. Yeah. But yeah, The Virgin Queen is the one I've probably rewatched the most time. So I'm going with that.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's awesome. My next question is, what 3 historical people would you invite to dinner? And I was thinking, why did I say historical? Because they could be anyone. It could be from yesterday's history or from like 1,000 years ago. But what would you, it could be also very historically related to something you're interested in.
Yeah. This is really hard, Kate.
I have trouble with this question. I made myself answer it too. I do too. There's no wrong answer.
Oh, okay, good. I actually asked my husband last night, what would you pick? And we were having a little discussion. I'm going to cheat. Is that all right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say if I had to have a Tudor dinner party and there had to be Tudors,
okay,
I would go with Anne, of course. Sorry, I know I'm being so predictable. Elizabeth, because I think how cool to have them both together.
Those two,
that would be awesome. And I'm going to chuck in Thomas Cromwell.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know it's going to be a bit. I need to have the wine out and calm everyone down a bit. I'm just fascinated by Thomas Cromwell. He was quite the genius, and so was Anne. So I would love to see them interacting and have Elizabeth there as a kind of, I don't know if she'd be a mediator or not, but that would be awesome, I think. As you know, I love the 40s as well. I love the sort of period from 1920s to 1940s. So I thought, okay, if I was having that kind of theme, I would go with Frank Sinatra. Ooh. I'd love to, chat to Frank Sinatra, although he'd probably cause a bit of trouble and get a bit too drunk and like throw chairs.
It would be entertaining though, and that's the whole point. Yeah.
But then I'd have Albert Einstein just to, keep us, keep us sitting there going, wow, what are you talking about?
You could go from one to the other.
Yeah, that's right. And then I think for my third person, I would really love one of those really like kick-ass female aviators from the time, like maybe someone like Amy Johnson or Bessie Coleman or Amelia Earhart, just to give it that really cool female power thing going on. And if I was having any... and if I was still allowed more, I know I've cheated so
you are. It's so hard to pick.
I really like to hang out with Jesus. I'm not overly religious person, but I just love to see what sort of personality and what sort of charisma he had. And maybe I could throw in like Cleopatra and I don't know, somebody else.
I mean, that's true. It's like to go back then and ask these people the questions that we're all dying to ask them.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm sorry, that was such a, I just
no, you didn't cheat, and I thought it was really interesting because the first one, the Tudor dinner, that was exactly what Rand, my husband, said he would. Really? Yeah. I think it would be really, really interesting.
All right, he can come to the dinner party too.
Can he join in? Yeah. Thank you. That would be great. Yeah, and it's so in Thomas Cromwell too. Like one of my other favorite film adaptations or Hollywood adaptations would be Wolf Hall, just because of Mark Rylance. I think that was just so moving the way he played that. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to edit this part out. What? I lost my place. Oh my
It's
God.
the wine, Kate. Don't mind.
It is. Okay. Um,
That's what I said. We could turn this into an episode of Drunk History.
I think we should. I think I'm going to keep this in.
Okay, that would be fun.
All right. So related to the Tudors or Tudor England, what kinds of messages do you think women can take from that time period in terms of women in power and feminism, and what are some of the messages we get from that?
Yeah. Wow. I think
That's kind of a heavy question. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's a heavy question after the last
Let
few.
me have a sip. Wait, let me have a sip.
I think we need to, yeah.
I need champagne courage first. What an awesome question. That's something that I often actually think about, and that I have once in a while asked my guests on the Talking Tutors podcast, because I do love to hear, as everyone relates differently, obviously, to history. And we take our own personal approach, and we're drawn to particular people. And so it's always slightly different, I think. But I am just amazed, totally amazed by the courage that the women showed, by the tenacity, by the resourcefulness, by their resilience. I really draw inspiration. I draw courage myself from them. It's not we can't romanticize this period. Often, of course, we romanticize the past. We all do it.
Yeah.
However, life for women, most women in the 16th century was tough.
Yeah.
Death was at every corner. Most women lost a lot of children, in childbirth or whatnot. Many lost their own lives in childbirth.
Right.
Life was hard. It was tough. Yet they still got up every day and put one foot in front of the other. And, so and even if we're talking about the wealthier women, let's take, for example, Elizabeth, or for example, Anne, or any of those women, and they showed the same sort of courage. Like, imagine having to get up on a scaffold and know that your head is about to be chopped off with a sword, and still be able to be dignified, deliver a speech, not go crazy saying the king sucks, right. On the scaffold. Like, obviously this is part of their tradition. This was what was expected of them, but it still takes a lot of courage.
Oh gosh, it's
even some men were known to run around on that scaffold. Whereas, so I think it is that resilience that even if things happen to you and you might consider them negative things, you continue and you still go on. And they had voices. We kind of think often they didn't, but they did within their parameters of the, the patriarchal society they lived in. They made something of their lives. They enjoyed it. They did the best they could do with what they had. And I just find that is awesome, I think. And even just, a bit more lighthearted note, even when I go to the dentist, this is true, Kate, and I don't like going to the dentist, and I think, I don't want to go to the dentist. I stop myself and I pause and I think, okay, imagine going to the dentist.
That's a good way to put it.
Like, what am I even complaining about? It's just fine. It's perfect. And that goes for lots of other things where you have the urge to complain. Then you think about women or people in general from the past, and you don't complain, because really we don't have that much to complain about.
That's absolutely good to think about. Absolutely. Yeah. And thinking back to what you said about Anne helping Henry plan Whitehall, just thinking about, so she was in this position to do so, but just thinking about what women were capable of and are capable of if they're only given this chance. And it was just such a horrible time to exist in some ways, but as you said, they took courage and did the best they could with their situation.
It just reminds me of something that someone said to me recently in another interview, that obviously, we have records of wealthy or noble women. Sometimes we don't, but the sort of everyday woman has kind of been buried in history. And a lot of the times we think that they weren't doing things, like we think they were just housewives but like the guest on that show reminded me, just one example, that women were running businesses in London. Men were leaving in their wills their whole businesses to their wives to continue after their death. This is in Tudor London. So what it suggests is that in fact women were taking a much bigger part in the running of, say, family businesses than we give them credit for. Like, yes, perhaps by law they weren't meant to be doing that or whatever, but they were, of course, and they had the skills and the knowledge. And that many men, in fact, showed that in their wills is quite incredible, because women were doing great things. We've always done great things, and to acknowledge that, I think, is really important.
That's really great. Yeah. And to think we have these wills and other documents to show us this, and if only women had been able to write history books, I mean, it would have just been wonderful to read those.
It would be wonderful to read from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And it just, sorry, I'm going to slightly veer here, Kate, for a second, because I just was reminded of something that, again, in that talk that I mentioned with Simon Thurley, and you can watch it online, everyone. So just Google that, and maybe Kate will put a link.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, because it was great. It was some things that I was a bit like, oh, okay, interesting, but other things I think were fantastic. And at one point, he actually says that the Boleyn family, which I loved, were made by the women. And it was just so refreshing coming from a male academic, a male historian, to acknowledge the power and the strength of the Boleyn women. And we're not just talking about Anne here, we're talking about her ancestors, of course. You know, that whole family was made by very careful marriages. And through those very careful marriages came incredible property and estates, which is another reason why I think Anne was so influential in that area for Henry, because she understood the power of property. She understood the power, how that brought status, how that brought wealth. And maybe for those of you that haven't heard, Anne Boleyn, and I'm just trying to show how important property and land and acquisition of estates was to the Boleyn family, is why I'm telling you this. She actually extracted the highest amount of income from her jointure properties. And this isn't exactly because she had more properties than the other queens of Henry or the other queen consorts. It's because she was very good at negotiating the leases. And she was actually taking a sort of front, what do you call it? What's that saying? A front seat approach. Like she wasn't just letting her council do everything. She was actually on top of it. So I just love that, because that's such a different perspective than we sometimes get of Anne.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so this is not to do with the Tudors necessarily, because we know you love the Tudors, but what is your second favorite time period of history that you like to study?
Yeah, I'm a big lover of history in general, and I think the past has always been so present for me, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But of late, and I know that you know this, Kate, of late, the 1940s has been calling me and drawing me in. So, and I'm doing my best not to completely fall in love with it, because I don't have time to love another love the Tudors. So for now, I'm just like, okay, you wait that, but I am kind of nurturing that love by reading things, not going too crazy with the research, just reading. And I think I mentioned to you that I finished a book. So I love reading the wartime diaries. They're one of my favorite things. And I finished a book called Mrs. Miles' Diary, and it's the diary of a housewife living in Surrey. Her name was Constance Miles, during the Second World War. And again, it's back to that theme that I was saying to you, that we tend to romanticize history, whereas in this you get the full sort of gamut of horror of the war. You know, they're living in Surrey, but every single night there is just the terrible noise of the bombers, of course, the German bombers flying overhead to go and bomb different areas in London. There's the never-ending queues for the rationing system. There's the food shortages, doesn't matter what, it could be Christmas and you've got nothing pretty much. The death, oh my gosh, like some families losing all three beautiful sons and in horrific ways, or never knowing what happened to them, because you just received the little telegram that says, sorry, we don't know what's happened. And then you sort of go, oh gosh, okay. So again, not to romanticize it, but I still feel so drawn to it, and the not the refugees, sorry, the evacuees, the constant influx of people from London, terrified that they've got no home, that they're going to be bombed. And just, so it was a lot of heartbreak, but for some reason I feel really drawn to it. And I have even had, kind of weird dreams set in that time period. And I don't know what it is, like, but I just go with it, and I nurture it a little bit.
And I think it also is connected to what you were just saying about being resilient. And there's really a lot of inspiration and courage to be taken from those stories. So I think it is connected.
Absolutely. That is so true, actually, Kate. That's really true, that I draw courage from that period too. Just the ability, what's the famous saying? Keep calm and carry on. It was like that. It really was. And I love to wear a red lippy, you probably know, but even that was a symbol of a defiance against Hitler. And
I just learned that recently. I think that's great. I didn't know that until, I don't know, this year. So
yeah, which is why I love it. I love it. There's this incredible story, and I can't remember the full story. I wish I had Karina, my sister, on hand. No, exactly. But basically, when one of the camps, the concentration camps I'm talking about, were liberated, somebody sent boxes and boxes of red lipstick.
Oh,
This is a true story. I'm telling you a true story here. And I know that a book should be, oh, I've just given away a book idea. Oh, well, that's okay. That a book should be written about it, because it is incredible, the power of a little bit for, you know, a woman that's been, oh gosh, has gone through literally hell and back, to then just feel that they have a little bit of control by just putting on a little bit of lipstick after the nightmare that they lived through. And that helped so much, like just the lifting the morale. And you know, I just love that story. So you will often find me in a red lippy, sort of commemorating all those incredible people.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think that is a good book in the works right there. Yeah. So, what moment would you travel back to in time, if that might be related to the last question or not, and why?
Yeah, no, I'm going to jump around here, Kate. You know me, I just love.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote the pyramids, so I think you could go anywhere. Yeah.
Did you say I should go to the pyramid?
No, I said I wrote that down as far as mine. So
I'd love to. I've got this thing as well. Here we go. Another thing with the sort of kind of 1920s Egypt. Like I'm a huge fan of movies like The Mummy and those kinds of movies, because I think, oh yes, I'd love to be in, you know, to go and explore. Obviously now we can't explore too far from our houses. I can't even go into the next state at the moment, but one day maybe you'll find me at the pyramids. However, that's not the place that I picked, or the moment, sorry. At first, my initial sort of thing said, oh, something big, like Anne's coronation or Field of Cloth of Gold, something like that. However, and Field of Cloth of Gold, of course, sorry, I have to give I have to say a few words about that.
I'm glad.
Do it. You don't mind.
Please.
Because that was so amazing, because it was from the 7th till the 24th of June, 1520. And basically anybody who was anybody was at the Field of Cloth of Gold. So you've got entire Tudor noble families attending. You've got everybody, all the French nobility. There's the entire Boleyn families there, plus every single person. I think from memory, the one person that was left behind, because of course a small council had to be left at home. Yeah. And I think this person would have, I don't know if you can guess, Kate, this person was someone that just must have woken up in the morning, looked in the mirror and gone, you are really good. You were really good. Yes. Can you guess yet? And who would have loved staying back to kind of control the country while the king.
Would it be Wolsey? No.
Oh, no, it wasn't Wolsey. Close. Duke of Norfolk.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Norfolk. So no, Wolsey organized it all. So he was most definitely there enjoying it all. But I love it because everything was on display. It was a big, massive show. So that the Tudor dynasty was on display that whole time, as was the French dynasty, obviously, as well. So I thought about that, but then I was like, no, too big. I want something quieter, something more kind of intimate, something smaller. So I decided that what I would really, really, really love to see is a moment back at Hever Castle, probably in around shortly after Henry's coronation, so Henry VIII's coronation in 1509, whenever, any moment when Thomas Boleyn and Elizabeth are back from court, they both attended the coronation. So when they're back at home with all the kids there, so George, Anne and Mary, just to see, I don't know, them in their private apartments. And Hever is small, it's quite intimate. So it's not like a huge palace, they all would have been separated. The family quarters were the family quarters. Just to see how they would have interacted. Maybe the parents would have told stories of the new handsome Renaissance prince. Or, you know, and little did they know that he would break all their hearts in the end. Like, I just find that, it's so incredible. So I would love to just see the young Boleyns doing whatever it is young Boleyns did. And the parents sitting there, maybe, you know, their nurses probably trying to keep track of what they're doing. And that would be, for me, maybe sitting by the fireplace, or that's it, a quiet family moment.
I love that. Yes. And that would tell you so much about what you want to know about that time and about the real people. Absolutely. And that's what matters, I think. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Okay. So, as you know, we're at a virtual Renaissance fair right now. I didn't come in costume, even though I thought I might, but I did say I would. It didn't happen. There was too much going on today, but I have it ready for the big day. So a lot of the smaller fairs, they just have like one weekend, and a lot of people dress in just period costume general. I tend to dress as a Tudor wench because I mean, I don't know if that's the proper word, but I do not have a fancy Tudor dress costume. I went to TudorCon last year in person, and the costumes were breathtaking. I assume they were also very expensive. So as soon as I make it big at the craft fairs, I'm going to invest in one of those. Some of the bigger fairs have theme weekends. So you can be really anything you want. There's a time traveling weekend. There's a pirate weekend.
I like that.
There's there's a steampunk weekend. So if you were to go to a fair, do you know what kind of costume you would like to put on?
Now that I didn't know there were theme weekends, so that makes it also more fun. Like now, it sounds like fun to be a pirate or something.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. So before that, I thought I had to be like kind of serious.
Well, you would be more respected if you were serious, so that's fine too.
I'm not going to be, I know what you're all thinking. She's going to say Anne Boleyn and she's going to wear the bee necklace. No, I'm not.
Okay.
Just because I know that that's what you're all thinking. In fact, I think that I would like to go as Elizabeth of York.
Ooh.
Now I know, I'm not blonde. I'm not the kind of, the look that they had then, but that's all right. Because Elizabeth, let's think about it, Kate. Mother of English kings, daughter of English kings, sister of English kings, niece of English kings, and I know I'm forgetting one, grandmother of English kings. How cool is that?
That's
How many
so
people
cool.
can you say that, so you could go around saying that to everyone. I if that's what you do.
It could be on your business card. You could just have that.
So you could list all those things and people would be like, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Also, because I don't know do you know the portrait? Can you picture in your mind the portrait of Elizabeth of York, the kind of depiction of her that is copied in different patterns? Yeah. So she's wearing a really lovely, I think it's probably velvet, a crimson velvet, quite fitted sort of bodice. And the sleeves, because it's from early 16th century, are quite fitted as well. And then they have kind of like fur cuffs on the ends. And she's got a very English gabled hood. I don't know if I'm a huge fan, but that's okay. I'd do it because I'm being her. And I would just carry like my white rose around as well. I'd be like, I'm Elizabeth of York. Elizabeth of York. So I think she sounds really good. I'm kind of wanting to do that now.
I love it. Absolutely. Yeah, that's wonderful.
I didn't know I could be a pirate. If I can be a pirate, that sounds like fun too.
Well, I know. I was thinking if I would maybe dress up as a Viking or something. Just.
Oh, can you do like Game of Thrones as well? Like
yes, I've seen a lot of Jon Snow's and some Daenerys's. Yes.
That'd be fun too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, some people dress up as like Daenerys and have their dog with them as the dragon, or even just their kids as dragons. It's great. Yeah, it gets pretty fun.
That sounds like fun. I love that.
Yeah, well, hopefully, maybe next year there's one that we can all go to. I don't know.
Oh, that would
or the year after.
I'll carry my white rose everywhere.
I know. Yes. Okay. Okay. So you have been so busy doing a lot of different things on social media, things that we get to see you doing and sharing. But behind the scenes, you are also working on a new project. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh my goodness, my new project. I can tell you a little bit about that, Kate, because I like you, so I can tell you.
Thank you.
So this is probably the biggest challenge I've ever set myself in terms of history and writing. And, I've been doing this for 11 years and I'm still like, oh, what am I doing? But anyway, so I'm writing a book and I'm writing, the working title is The Final Year of Anne Boleyn.
Wow.
So that gives you a little clue.
I have goosebumps though. Yeah.
However, it's not really it's more like the final 18 months. So if you can imagine.
That makes sense for you. You're just like, I'm just going to, it's just,
Yeah. So it's an account of really the last 18 months of her life. So all of 1535 and then 1536. Lots has been written about Anne. There's so many biographies about Anne. One of my favorites is Eric Ives's biography of Anne, which, although I don't agree with everything he said now, but the respect he had for her was unbelievable. And the effort that he went to ensure that what he was saying was correct and verifiable, or that's a word, verifiable. But what I noticed is, and in a lot of the biographies, that time period, in particular 1535, is kind of, sometimes it is literally two chapters, two paragraphs. Other times it gets a chapter. And this is not a criticism. I understand how difficult it is when you're writing about a person's entire lifetime. You cannot spend a lot of time on 1 year or things like that. But I knew that this was a particularly important period of time. And especially if you're wanting to understand, well, what on earth happened in May 1536. You know, for a long time, and I still find myself scratching my head just trying to piece it all together. However, what I do know is that when you have a good understanding of the previous year, it's going to make more sense to you. It's definitely going to make more sense. And there's so much going on. This is a year unlike, I think, any other year. You know, there just as a few examples, there is everything from there. Like there were so many difficulties in that year and so many pressures on their marriage. So if you thought for one second that in 1535, Catherine of Aragon and her daughter Mary were quiet and were just enjoying their new status, no, they were doing everything possible to disrupt and everything possible to encourage Charles V to invade. And that is the honest truth. Writing letters, which that's what they're looking for. They're looking for him to remedy their situation. And when Catherine of Aragon says, remedy my situation, you pay attention. So, but for whatever reason, Charles didn't invade in the end. But in 1535, that was a real possibility. Francis I is there in the background as well, trying to work out what he's got to do to keep Henry on side, to keep Charles on side, to, you know, so politically there's a lot happening. There are rebellions in Ireland going on that are causing Henry significant headaches, rebellions that Charles is rumoured to be supporting or encouraging at the very least. There's Henry's nephew, James, on the throne in Scotland, who doesn't appear to be too happy with his uncle's new marriage and family situation. So that is a constant threat because that is their northern border. So there's all these they're surrounded by threat. And unfortunately, internally, it was not much different. There is people are not happy with the situation, the general people. But on top of everything else, there is unseasonably high rains, in particular in the southwest of the country, which triggers famine. So for the everyday person, it was a difficult year. And, you know, within this or in the midst of this, Anne is trying to navigate her queenship and she's trying to...
That just really stresses me out.
Yeah, it's just have a sip because it is stressful. You know, she's trying to win, I suppose, the affection of the people, and perhaps had she had another 10 years maybe she would have, because I think she would have made an excellent queen and she was doing her best to be an excellent queen. But what I love is that you get to see a real human being. You get to see a person that at the beginning of the year is basically on the verge of a mental breakdown. She is incredibly stressed. She has lost support of the French. She lost it in about 1534 really. The ambassadors at court are being pretty nasty to her and treating her with disrespect and pretty much liking Catherine. You know, she's just had what I think was a stillbirth in 1534. So she's got Elizabeth living in her own establishment. She's not able to be there constantly for her, although, you know, she was doing everything she could to protect her. And when we see those kinds of outbursts from Anne, it's because she was trying to protect her daughter and she was trying to protect her position. So, but then you have some really fantastic 3 months of royal progress. It takes place in the middle of the year. So 3.5 months. So this was one of the longest progresses of Henry's reign. Yeah. And they are just having the best time. There's a letter from a guy I love, and I don't know if I always pronounce it wrong. I don't know if it's John Hussey or John Hussey. My friend Adrian Dillard will know who I'm talking about because we both love him. Anyway, so he is working for Lord Lisle in Calais. And so he's writing back to him and he says, I don't know what's going on. Like, he's really just not knowing what's happening because Henry is not signing any documents. They're all waiting on the king to sign important documents. And Henry's like, whatever, I'm hunting, I'm having a good time. So they were obviously, after the bloodbath that was the end of John Fisher, the end of Thomas More, the end of many monks, that just outraged Europe. They go on this trip and it's a bit like a getaway or whatever. And so they're enjoying themselves. They're having a good time. All the reports say that they're in high spirits. They're merry is the kind of catchphrase. They're merry. And this is supported by the fact that when they reach Windsor in October, Anne is pregnant. So then it goes on to probably the period that people are familiar with, 1536, the miscarriage, the death of Catherine of Aragon, the first named a mention of Jane Seymour, which doesn't come until February 1536, everybody. So don't believe the whole Wolf Hall thing. Like February 1536, and Chapuis calls it a new love. New.
Wow.
And then everything else that happened. So I just thought this is a period that warrants close study, a close look, you know, at the very least a close account and a narrative. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do that. It's taking a long time, much longer than I thought. And I was hoping to have it done by the end of this year, but I think it's going to be more like next year, but that's all right. We can all wait.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I know everyone's going to be looking forward to that. And so it sounds incredibly difficult to pull this all together. As far as your writing process, so you came up with the idea, step one.
It was actually placed in my head, Kate. I didn't even
it just fell. But where do you go from there? Do you open the research books first, or do you just sort of map it out?
Yeah, this is a good question. And I think that process evolves as well. Like I did things differently before, but what I found worked for me this time. And firstly, there's no way I could even attempt this without the decade that I have behind me.
Yeah.
First, like I have to just say that if I just decided one day I was going to write about, I don't know, somebody I've never written about, I'd need 10 years to study the person first. So that with that sort of as the foundation, let's say, that's kind of the foundation. What I did this time, I spent about, I think 6 months. I did not write one single word. I spent 6 months going through every single source and document. You know, the state papers are calendared online. So that's what we always refer to as letters and papers, always keeping it. So it's a great start, but always keep in mind, these are summaries. These are usually summaries. They are not transcripts of the letters.
Okay.
So then if this is where difficulties lay and where things get a bit murky and mixed up. So if you see something, what I was doing was going through every single entry for the entire 1535 and all of 1536. Wow. I read it all. I made notes, did that sort of thing, highlighted things that I thought might be useful. And then I noted documents that I wanted to order from the National Archives. So luckily for me, I was organized pre-COVID, and I managed to order lots of things that I really wanted to sort of drill down onto or just double check prior to those services shutting down. And they are not back up yet. So I'm very patient. I emailed them like, hello, when's your sort of copying service going to come back? And they were like, oh, soon. I'm so sorry. So I ordered from the National Archives and from the British Library and from the French main library in France. Paris Bibliothèque, I think it's called. And ordered documents to try and get to the bottom of things that are a bit murky. Like I wanted to ensure that I wasn't simply repeating things that were in obviously other biographies. And I can tell you, Kate, that I have found that things have been repeated because they've just been repeated.
Well, and there's sometimes there's not as much information. Oh, okay. Yeah. They just get perpetuated that way too.
Yeah, they just get, which is, again, I don't blame people because it's a huge task to try and go through everything. And then I'm a novice at, I will admit, I am a novice at reading these original documents. So I tend to put it up on my computer and just drive myself insane. I tend to find a good transcript and then compare. And I am very lucky that I know a lot of wonderful people. So I send screenshots going, what in God's name does this say? And I have my little list of abbreviations and, you know, work. So I'm working with a lot of things. So I did that for 6 months.
Wow.
Then at the beginning of this year, I thought, if I don't start writing, this book is never going to happen. So I started writing, and that was January. And then things kind of, we all know what 2020 has been. We don't need to say anything else. I have just crossed over. Oh, I haven't crossed over. I've just sorry, that would be weird if I crossed over. Not yet. I've just hit 50,000 words.
Ooh,
so
congratulations.
Thank you so much. I was hoping to be at around 70,000.
Okay.
You know what? 2020. That's my excuse, people.
I mean, 2020. Absolutely.
And so now I had all that sort of foundation of the research from the last 10 years. So a lot of kind of things floating around in my head. The 6 months of preparation, the notes month by month, day by day. Literally, I know where the court was at almost every single moment in that period, noting things, highlighting things. Then I got to starting to write the actual book. But of course, as always happens, I still had to stop to research things. And so some days I would write, 1,500 words, other days, and I'm not lying to you, 200 words. Okay. And that's because I sat the entire day trying to find something or sift through certain sources or whatever.
Wow.
But it's very challenging. But I've got Anne, a portrait of Anne on my desk, and I kind of just look at her and I'm like, please just give me strength to finish this.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I'm so impressed. I mean, writing anything just feels challenging for me. And so to think of all the process and the effort you've put into this, I cannot wait to read the book. And I know a lot of people out there are going to be really excited too as well.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We should have a book party. We should definitely
Well,
do that.
yeah, definitely. I'm hoping, fingers, toes, everything crossed, that by September next year it'll be out.
Yeah.
So we can plan we can plan a book.
Something.
If we can't see each other in person, we can do another
Something like that. Yeah.
virtual launch. That sounds fun, actually.
Actually, yes. Let's start. We will plan that. More information to come, everyone. Wow, thank you for that. So my last question has to do with Halloween, which at the time that this is coming out, Halloween is just around the corner. And I was wondering if you had any favorite ghost stories or even personal encounters that you would like to share with us to sort of spook us as we head toward Halloween.
Well, Kate, let me tell you, and let me tell all your lovely viewers, that if you're looking for ghost stories, you've come to the right person. Basically, I have lots, but I just want to say that I pretty much grew up in a house that you would call haunted. Both my childhood homes were very odd, but I'm not going to sit here for another hour and tell you those stories because you might fall asleep.
You should do another interview about that, though.
For sure, absolutely. Yeah. However, there's a couple I'd love to mention, and one of them you were there for, Kate, so I want your input. So you mentioned that we were in York.
Yes.
In 2018, and we were there for 10 days, you and I, and we were I had an idea to write a book about Tudor York, similar to my discovering Tudor London. In the end, that was sort of sidetracked for the Anne Boleyn book. So Anne won and Tudor York lost. But anyway, that still may happen in the future. And so we were going around visiting all these incredible churches and just, the alleyways or snickleways.
Oh, the snickleways.
I love those. So cool. And just so many great places. And of course, we went to York Minster. And we paid a little bit extra and we did, what was it called? The rooftop?
Yeah, the above the chapter house. Oh, the rooftop.
The secrets of or something. It was
hidden tour or something. Yeah, it's on their website. Yeah,
some places that you wouldn't normally see if you just do the kind of general entry fee. And then, okay, take it from here. What happened?
We were walking down a narrow stairwell corridor, stone walls on either side of us, except for maybe the window out, out to the world.
I think we were in a staircase, weren't we?
We were in a staircase, yes. We were heading down from the roof, maybe. And all of a sudden we heard what sounded like monks singing through the wall, through the stone wall, but in a beautiful song. But it was off in the distance. It was echoey, but there was no room.
No. As far as we know, it was literally coming out of the walls.
Yes,
and we just
we both heard.
If one of us was higher than the other, we just kind of looked at each other.
We looked down the stairwell. No, there was no singing and no rehearsal. There were no monks or anything that I'm sorry, I don't mean to say it like that. There might have been some monks there, but no one that we saw singing or in a group gathered with voices. Yeah,
this had a real old world vibe to it. I have to say, this wasn't the kind of singing you would hear when you walk into a church anyway. It was very strange, and it did seem to be coming out of the stonework.
Yes, and I know how over the years you've told me some stories about your spiritual encounters, and I think you might be more connected to that other world than I am, and because of that, I've never had an encounter like that before. But I think it's because I was with you that it happened, and I love that we both heard it, but I think there's something to it.
Some people have concluded that there aren't haunted buildings, there's only haunted people. So that could be it. I could be one of those haunted people.
It's you.
And I wanted to, can I tell you one more? Do we have time? I know that
you do. Please.
I've kept your viewers on for so long, and now they're like, oh, she really does love history, doesn't she?
This is perfect.
I do. Again, I was in England, and there's lots of good ghost stories about England. This was in 2013, so this is prior to our visit. And my family and I, so my husband, I live here in Sydney with my husband and my 2 children, and we were doing a big UK trip, of course. inspired by me saying we're going to
Oh.
go to a big vacation. But we did spend a weekend in Paris, as you do, of course.
Mm.
So we were actually, that day we had caught the high-speed train from Paris to Dover, and then we'd crossed over the channel. And so it was a very big day. And at that point, my children were young. Like my youngest, what was he then? He must have been like 6 or something. So, you know, it was a big day for him. We woke up early, got the train from Paris, all of that. And we stayed in a beautiful little place called, what is it called? Le Maison Dieu in Dover, a guest house. But when we arrived, we were too early. So the people said, okay, you can leave your bags, but come back later. So we went, of course, as you do, to Dover Castle. Yeah. We had a lovely walk around Dover Castle. So lots of walking. The kids were running around. By the time we got back, it was quite late. And we had no idea that they didn't serve any dinner or anything. And we were like, oh, God.
Oh, gosh.
So we had to get the kids, go out again. And we decided to go. And it was like, I don't know why we decided. She said that this was really great food at a certain place, but it was a good few kilometers walk. Okay. So again, after the day we'd had, this is quite late at night, we went, we had our dinner. It was beautiful in the end. My husband ended up having to, of course, carry our youngest all the way back. We got home. We were like, oh my God, to say we were exhausted is really an understatement. So we, you know, showered, whatever, into bed. It was such a beautiful room, so cozy. The kids had their own single beds and we had ours. Everyone went to sleep, no problem. But I'm a very light sleeper, even in that kind of exhaustion. I'm still a light sleeper. And you know, when you're sleeping and you got your eyes shut, but you see a change in light, like you can tell, like when something's got brighter or whatnot. So I had my eyes shut, but I realized that I could see light. And I thought, what's happened here? Opened my eyes just to catch the door of the room from the sort of halfway point of being open halfway to a closed position. And thought, oh my God. And looked, the first thing I did was check the kids were still there. We're all still there. I thought, what was that? So I got up out of bed, opened the door, looked out onto the landing, bright light on in the landing, absolutely nobody, nothing, no noise. This is really like about 3 a.m. at this point. So I shut the door, put all the locks, because this is the really weird thing, Kate, that I am, and anyone that knows me can testify to this, that I always check doors. Yes. I check them at home, but in particular, if I'm away from home, I will check the locks. If there's a chain, I use it. If there's one of those other flicky things, I use it. Right. And I'm check, you know, and I had done that.
Absolutely.
I promise. I swear to you, I had put on.
I saw you. I mean, when we were in New York at that hotel, you told me, you're like, I'm locking my door. Yeah, I know you do that.
Whatever's there, I use it. Like whatever you've got for me, I'm going to use it. Yeah. And so I know that I'd done that. I know that I'd done that, even though we were exhausted. I know that I'd done that. So the door could only have been open from the inside, Kate. And I was just beside myself. I didn't know what to do. Like I know. Like my husband said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Well, there was somebody in here." He said, "But impossible. How?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but I just watched the door." Oh my God. And I didn't. I wish I'd asked the lady at the desk in the morning when we checked out, but I was actually just, I don't know, it just blew me away to have so clearly watched something move, the whole door closed, but nobody there. And knowing that could only, even if you had the key, it would have caught on the extra security thing.
Right. Oh, right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
You know how you've got those?
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah.
Yeah. So to open the door completely would have taken somebody inside,
unlatching. Agents are drawn to you. Ghosts are drawn to you.
So that one was particularly crazy. I was just like, and if anyone's listening, because I know that Dover is a particular hotspot.
Yes.
I'm not going to go into the details, but I did have another thing happen at the castle. So I want to know if anyone's watching, any of your viewers, and they've had something strange happen at Dover, anywhere else, I'd love to hear about it. Maybe they can email you or they can get in touch on social media or something.
Yeah, I would love to hear that too. That's a really good idea. Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and for answering all these questions and for sharing all this wonderful information about your journey and the things that you love and just talking more about yourself. And I'm just so glad because we hear you talking to all these other people all the time and we love that, but I know everyone wants to hear from you. So thank you so much for joining us. Yes, they do. People love you. Yes. And I'm looking forward to our virtual book party next fall and hopefully
I get it.
You will. And hopefully getting back to England together sometime. soon.
Sometimes.
In the
Yeah,
next
we're staying at
couple
Hiva.
years.
We've got that on our list.
We do. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks for joining me.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Okay. Bye.